Opportunities for Advancement, Reading Trends Among African American Males, a 20-year analysis. Over the past 2 decades, reading scores for African American males have remained consistently lower than those of their white and Hispanic peers across the United States. Studies such as those by the Nation's Report Card and Reardon highlight persistent education debts, with socioeconomic and systemic factors contributing heavily. These inequities have long-term implications for academic success, graduation rates, future career opportunities, and health. Without targeted interventions, these disparities are likely to widen, continuing the cycles of underachievement and limiting upward mobility for African American males. Reading scores tell a deeper story. For African American males, this story often reflects systemic challenges. Today, we'll explore 20 years of data and what it means for the future. National assessments like NAEP show a discouraging consistency. African American males trail their peers significantly, and this inequity begins early. According to the U.S. Treasury, educational inequities are evident at the onset of kindergarten, with Black and Hispanic children scoring significantly lower in reading and math compared to white peers. These inequities persist and often widen through elementary and middle school. Here we see reading score trends from 1992 to 2017. For Black students, there was a 14-point increase in grade 4 and a 12-point increase in grade 8, while grade 12 saw a 7-point decrease. It's also worth noting that Black and Hispanic student scores are quite close throughout the years. However, what really stands out is the persistent gap between the scores of white students compared to both Black and Hispanic students. Here we see a comparison of fourth grade reading scores of Black and white students from 1992 through 2022. And according to Meza et al., the pandemic further widened these scores, particularly affecting Black and Hispanic students due to digital divide issues and reduced instructional time. Now we are comparing the fourth grade reading scores in Virginia of Black students to Hispanic students, and you can see how similar they are. Here we see scores from 2019, where you can see the drastic differences in the percent of students at or above proficiency by ethnicity. A key study from Reardon found that from 1992 to 2019, average reading scores for African American males in fourth and eighth grades remained significantly lower than those of white males, with Hispanic males scoring between but closer to African Americans in some regions. Here we see how states like Mississippi have decreased the percentage of African American males below proficiency, while states like California, DC, Florida, and New Jersey have seen an increase in African American males below proficiency. In DC in 2024, the average reading score for African American male fourth grade students was 191 compared to 259 for white male students, indicating a substantial score difference. Florida, the same year, saw African American male students scoring an average of 204, while white male students scored 227, reflecting a persistent disparity. Regionally, the South and Midwest tend to report more pronounced disparities, correlating with socioeconomic and educational resource inequities. Lopez, Savalos, and Rothwell emphasize that educational inequities result from a combination of socioeconomic status, school funding, teacher quality, and community factors. This figure illustrates the increasing percentage of African American males performing below proficiency across multiple states from 2013 to 2024. The yellow bars represent 2013 data, and the navy blue bars show 2024. So you can compare the differences there. This figure displays grade 4 students in Virginia performing below proficiency, categorized by ethnicity, from 2015 through 2024. Note the consistently higher percentage for Black and Hispanic students compared to other demographic groups. And here we see the 2024 scaled reading scores for grade 4 across the United States, highlighting the substantial educational debt between Black and Hispanic students compared to their white counterparts. According to Tolson and Lemons, this educational debt is most severe in urban areas like Detroit, Chicago, and Los Angeles, where African American males often face underfunded schools, overcrowded classrooms, and limited access to experienced teachers along with advanced coursework. Overall, the research revealed some common themes, which provide some context on how socioeconomic and racial dynamics influence educational outcomes along with their long-term effects. If these trends continue, the long-term consequences could be devastating, not just for individuals, but for communities and the economy at large. According to Latz and Billings, this educational debt is a societal obligation, since it is a result of systemic inequities. These inequities translate directly into a decrease in workforce readiness, lifelong success, and health. The ability to read proficiently by third grade is a strong predictor of high school graduation and future success. African American males disproportionately lag behind, indicating systemic inequities in education. So, addressing these inequities and learning is essential for ensuring equity, enhancing workforce readiness, and fostering social justice. According to research from Lopez, Savalos, and Rothwell, lower educational attainment among Black and Hispanic males is strongly linked with higher risks of cognitive impairment and chronic diseases later in life. All sources agree there is a significant and persistent reading achievement opportunity, and the best way to address this is through targeted interventions in early childhood education, culturally relevant curriculum, and increased investment in underserved schools. Early literacy interventions and culturally responsive teaching are consistently cited as effective practices. Research also emphasizes that socioeconomic status, lack of access to quality resources, and teacher expectations all combine to impact African American male achievement. Findings from Lopez, Savalos, and Rothwell and other health studies suggest that enhancing educational opportunities for younger generations may serve as a valuable strategy to improve cognitive health and reduce disparities among aging populations. There are only a few studies that offer long-term data or compare trends across different regions. We also see limited research on successful school models or programs specifically designed for African American males. Additionally, there's a clear need for more up-to-date data, especially post-2020, to understand the impact of the pandemic. And finally, we need deeper exploration into the role of parent engagement and strong community school partnerships. These differences in reading achievement and the life outcomes connected to them are likely to grow, particularly for African American and Hispanic males in under-resourced communities. As these disparities expand, they may influence access to higher education and career opportunities. Research from the National Center for Education Statistics, along with Tolson and Lemons, shows that these differences in reading outcomes are not just educational challenges. They reflect broader, deeply rooted societal inequities. To effectively reduce this education debt, a holistic and sustained effort is necessary, focusing on both educational practices, broader socioeconomic factors, along with increasing community and family engagement. This model demonstrates effective approaches, from early intervention to culturally relevant teaching and strong adult relationships. Culturally responsive practices enable educators to adopt teaching methods reflecting Black male students' cultural backgrounds and experiences. Mentorship programs establish networks, providing Black males with essential role models and support systems. Addressing equity and discipline requires schools to confront biased practices and implement restorative justice approaches. Curriculum reform develops inclusive content, highlighting Black contributions and experiences, fostering engagement and pride. Professional development that trains educators to recognize and counteract implicit biases creates a more equitable learning environment. Finally, community partnerships strengthen ties within families and local organizations, enhancing student support systems. The achievement disparity is real, persistent, and rooted in systemic inequities. educators must look beyond traditional methods to consider the broader factors influencing student performance. As Lee argues, this requires understanding the complex interplay of socioeconomic conditions, educational policies, and cultural influences on learning outcomes. This is about more than scores, it's about futures. So let's give every student the literacy foundation they deserve. As Frederick Douglass said, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.